This is Covering the Spread, part of the FanDuel Podcast Network.
I could not be more pumped for Sunday's games in the NFL. We have got fantastic games in all three time slots. Early window, we got Houston versus Denver. We got Philly versus San Fran in the afternoon. And then, of course, pretty intriguing game between the Chiefs and the Packers to cap things off. We're going to break down all three of those games here on Covering the Spread for today, breaking down what Dr. Ed Feng's numbers say relative to the markets at FanDuel Sportsbook to get you ready for what should be a very fun Week 13. This is Covering the Spread right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and FanDuel Research. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a managing editor of digital media for FanDuel Research, joined here as I am every Thursday by Dr. Ed Feng. Find his work at thepowerrank.com and check him out on Twitter at the Power Rank. Ed, pretty fun slate of games coming up Sunday. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Looking forward to another awesome weekend of both college football and the NFL. And we really do have a good slate of games.
I mean, like we talked about yesterday, it starts on Friday with that Pac-12 championship game. So 3 consecutive days of pretty fun games. Yep. I can live with that for sure. And we don't have a lot of these weekends left where we get this many days of good football. So we got to cherish it while it's still here for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, near the New Year is obviously going to be awesome.
Yes.
With an NFL Sunday and then New Year's on Monday with the semifinal games. That's going to be pretty awesome. But I think we got to really enjoy this week, right? I mean, for both college football and the NFL.
Yeah, definitely. And next year will be a lot different with the 12-team playoff. That'll give us some more juice for a longer time for college football, but at least for this year, we'll enjoy this weekend to cap it all off. We're going to dive into the Sunday games here in just 1 second to get you ready from a betting perspective for Week 13. But first, a reminder to make sure you're subscribed to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts. On that same feed right now, you can find our breakdown of college football, the conference championship week. We talked about that Pac-12 championship game, SEC, Big Ten, ACC, all in the same place. Get Ed's numbers for those games by checking out the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. If you like what you hear, leave us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or over on Spotify as well. If you want a breakdown of the Thursday night game between Seattle and Dallas, that is up as well in the Covering the Spread podcast feed via Tom Vecchio with Primetime Tom and over on FanDuel TV Plus as well. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there is no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There is a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, totals, and more. So visit FanDuel and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino LLC. First online real money wager only. $5 pregame moneyline wager required. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expires 7 days after receipt. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG in Colorado, Iowa, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Virginia. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342 in Arizona, 1-888-789-7777, or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut, 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana, 1-800-522-4700, or visit ksgamblinghelp.com in Kansas, 1-877-770-STOP in Louisiana. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland, 1-800-GAMBLER.net in West Virginia, 1-800-522-4700 in Wyoming. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Now, before we dig into the actual games on Sunday, I did want to talk to you about the futures market, because a couple years ago when Tom Brady was in his first year at Tampa Bay, you pinpointed the Buccaneers around this time as a team that had untapped upside and said maybe they're worth looking into in the futures market. Of course, they did win it all. So I got to go back to the well, Ed. Any teams you think fit a similar mold when you look at the overall landscape here for 2023?
It's not exactly similar, but I mean, I think Buffalo is certainly the team that I mean, we all know that they had Super Bowl potential because if you asked anyone 12 games ago, you would have made them one of the favorites, co-favorites, maybe actually the favorite. I think I remember talking to Dr. Eric Eager about the differences between Buffalo and Kansas City, and he actually thought that Buffalo had a overall more talented roster. The season really hasn't gone like they have planned. They're 6-6. But they're 2-6 in one-score games, so that's clearly been the problem. Yeah, what are their Super Bowl odds, man? Whoa, that's kind of exciting.
Yeah,
anyways,
I mean, like it's very clearly because of the playoff positioning. But like, if they make it, they're a dangerous team.
They're clearly a dangerous team. I mean, they're going to have to play an extra game, but almost everyone plays an extra game now, and nothing's really been wrong with the offense except turnovers. When I look at passing success rate adjusted for opponent, they're fourth. And I just don't believe their defense is as bad as 27th, which is where the numbers have them for the course of the year. We've seen a lot of defenses that have gone out and really stunk it up, and then they're slowly regressing back to NFL average, which is probably where they belong. I'm thinking about like Miami in particular. They have been playing better. We kind of expect that. They do have the talent. You get a Jalen Ramsey back. Vic Fangio probably still knows what he's doing, even though it didn't seem like that for the first couple of games of the season. I think there's similar arguments that can be made for Buffalo's defense, despite some of the injuries. So I would definitely go with Buffalo there. And then also, like, they're probably not going to make the playoffs, but I wouldn't sleep on the Chargers either. It'd be kind of interesting to see if there's value against the spread. Look, they still got Justin Herbert, still have Keenan Allen. They're also 2-5 in one-score games. Are they good? No. But are they better than their record? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, they're plus 710 to make the playoffs after that loss to Baltimore on Sunday. They get the Patriots this week. I've got them as pretty heavy favorites, I think, in that game. They're 5.5, I think, or 6. Yeah, 5.5 at FanDuel right now. I've got them heavily favored in that game. So I think they're interesting. I've been burned by them quite a bit, so I don't think I can get there personally. But the Bills, like, if you look at overall like power rankings, like, look at your numbers, I look at my numbers, like they're still a top 5 team by those numbers.
Yeah, exactly.
In part because I downweight defense, so I know that that's part of it. But like, defense is less predictable, less sticky than a lot of other things, at least based on what I've found. So I don't mind doing that. Probably not going to have Von Miller now. There's been some pretty. I think there's an arrest warrant out for him, so that's not ideal, obviously, for their defense. But he wasn't playing that well to begin with.
Right.
So, like, obviously, the reason they're plus 360 to make the playoffs is because they face a very tough schedule. But like, the AFC is pretty vulnerable at the bottom end of it right now. You're looking at Texans Broncos face off this weekend. The Browns suck. They've got a horrible quarterback situation. The Steelers got to win. They'll probably win this week too, but like, we know their limitations as well. So although the Bills have that tough schedule, I don't think it's fair to count them out quite just yet.
Yeah, I mean, they're still 6-6. And Jim, are you saying that having Joe Flacco win the backup job is not good for your quarterback situation? Is that what you're trying to
apply?
Please
explain to me why is that spread tightening for Rams Browns? I laid the 4.5 and I feel like a moron because it's down to 3.5 now. Tell me why Joe Flacco is inspiring optimism in the betting market right now.
I mean, it's probably something else, but
Myles Garrett might now play too. Like, what's happening here?
Well, he's got to be worth a couple points, so maybe that's more likely than
But like, it's shortened. It shouldn't have shortened if Myles Garrett might miss, and I'm like very frustrated. So I just think the Browns are a fraudulent team. I saw a whale capper, Drew Dinsick, on Twitter talking about some playoff probabilities. And he said that his numbers were a lot lower on Cleveland. I was like, vindication. Like, I need Drew on my side at all times. But like, they're just such a bad team that I can't stand it. But here we are, spreads tightening. I'm the dummy once again. So we'll see how things play out there. But I agree with you. I think the Bills are still a threat, and the odds are accounting for their playoff positioning. So sure, I think you can take a swing at upside for a team that could do some damage if they were to make it in the AFC playoffs. Let's talk about that first really thrilling game on Sunday. We got the Broncos heading to Houston to take on the Texans, where right now this spread is at 3.5 and the total is 47.5. And Ed, the Broncos defense has been a lot more impressive recently than they were earlier on this year. Are you buying into that enough to back them against the Texans?
No, not really. I mean, I feel like Denver is 6-5, but they're kind of they're like Washington and Florida State in college football. They're kind of sounding off those fraud alarms, right? I mean, you kind of look at these games, look at some of these box scores. They beat Kansas City, and when Kansas City turned it over 5 times, squeaked by Buffalo in a game that Buffalo turned it over 4 times. I mean, it just goes on and on. You got that 1-point win over Minnesota, and you faced DTR last week and getting a nice win, but I don't know. I'm kind of not buying on Denver, and this game. I feel like every game for Houston from now on out is going to be kind of interesting to look at. What you would have made a preseason. Preseason, I would have made Denver -4 on the road here. If you just look at data from the current year, you're going to make Houston -7 at home, and the real answer is going to be somewhere in between. My model says Houston by 1.3 points. That seems low. So, I wouldn't trust my number on it. It's just a matter of like where you pick how to weight certain things. How are you going to split the difference? I think Houston -3.5 is a pretty good number. I don't particularly like Denver, and I feel like we had the same conversation last week with Houston against Jacksonville, and that was the opposite because I think Jacksonville is not fraudulent. I think they're a pretty good football team, and maybe an underrated football team too. Because I don't track stuff like EPA, but apparently they don't look particularly good by EPA, but they look a lot better by passing success rate, and that's the kind of thing I think projects is more sticky and is going to tend to persist. And I think Trevor Lawrence is potentially going to be an elite quarterback. So much different situation this week, and a Denver team that I don't like. So I'm staying away from this one.
Yeah, I did look it up, and I had this at Denver by 1.2 in the preseason. So I was a bit higher in Houston then, which is, again, it goes back to the discussion we've had a bunch where I've had value on the Texans money line every single game so far this year, including last week, which did not go well, obviously, after that missed field goal towards the end. But like, for whatever reason, my numbers were high in Houston to begin the year, and they're still high on them. So I do show value on the 3.5 right now. Right. But like, I think that makes sense when you're talking about how your numbers say, if it's just 2023 data, they'd be favored by 6. And if I had it at 1.2 in the preseason in favor of Denver, it kind of does make sense that I would show value in Houston -3.5 at this point, given that the prior has a lot less weight now than it did earlier on. So I agree with you. I think that like this Denver team is kind of fraudulent. They've had better defense recently, but you have to remember that like, they let up, I think, 20 plus points to Joshua Dobbs, then turned into a pumpkin the following week. And they faced the combination of Dorian Thompson-Robinson and PJ Walker last week. Like, they did play very well against both Buffalo and Kansas City, but that's a 2-game sample. So I'm still very skeptical of this defense, which leads me to think that Houston continues to be undervalued. So, and I want to watch CJ Stroud in the playoffs. So selfishly, I hope that they can win this game as well.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that would be pretty fun.
All righty. Let's talk about the headliner here, which is on Sunday afternoon between the Eagles and the 49ers right now. The 49ers are 2.5-point favorites. Total in this game is 47.5. We talked about being lower on the Eagles throughout this year, but they keep getting the job done. Didn't cover the opening number against Buffalo last week, so did get the Bills to cover their push on it if you got on 3. But now they're home dogs. So can they cover in the spot against a very, very lethal 49ers team?
Right. I mean, I think they can. In the way when I heard about this game and San Francisco was a favorite, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I think the Eagles are overrated and probably the most overrated amongst those top teams. But when you look at kind of the magnitude of the spread and you kind of fuss around with the math, I mean, and you're basically saying, well, if San Francisco is a 2.5-point road favorite, that means they're 4.5, 5 points better than the Eagles on a neutral site. And, like my numbers right now have San Francisco about 6.5 points better than NFL average. And I think that's generous. I think anytime you're close to a touchdown better than NFL average, like you're probably overestimating a team, especially a team without a proven quarterback, although I think Purdy's been really good this year. So anyways, if you back it out, I mean, you're kind of saying Philly's only 2 points better than NFL average, and that seems way low. That doesn't seem right to me. I think the Eagles are overrated, but they're better than that. They're still a good team. They're still a very good football team. So, my numbers actually favor Philly in this game. I do think there is some value here with Philly plus 2.5. And Ben Brown was on my podcast. He talked about this game as well. The way he looks at it in terms of EPA and in his modeling, he also thinks there's value here. He sees enough good things with the Eagles that he finds value in, the Eagles being plus 2.5 at home.
Yeah. Plus 2.5 right now for the Eagles is minus 104. There was a plus 3 very briefly yesterday at FanDuel Sportsbook on the Eagles. That went away pretty quickly. So it does seem like people were interested once it got to 3 here. And I agree the Eagles are overvalued, but this does seem like a pretty drastic swing. Now I say that while looking at I'm leaning on my alternate model for the Eagles because they're so weird with their passing efficiency that I just can't trust my traditional model. And I look at the other one and it has San Francisco by 2.4, but that's because it views San Francisco as being the superpower kind of team where they're a tier above everybody else. So even that model I can't trust for this week. So I just have ignored all value I've shown on San Francisco because I just don't feel going that way for this week. And I think that honestly, Ed, no, we know the way that your model works. If your model shows value on Philadelphia, a team that it views as being a bit fluky in the way they've won these games, I think that should speak more to the value in Philly, given that we know they're just a weird team. They have such good late down efficiency via the tush push and stuff like that. They convert in key situations. So I think if your model is showing value while potentially underselling them, I think that does tell us a lot about this game.
Yeah, no, for sure. Right. And, I try to almost exclusively not put in things like tush push, rush success rate numbers into my model. It's there, but it really doesn't matter that much. So, given that my model is very heavily passing based and it's showing value, I would agree. I like it, even though I think the Eagles are overrated.
Right. The weird thing about them is even their late down success rate is not as high as you think it'd be. So that's why they're kind of a weird team to me. But I agree. I think that this is a spot where if you're going to buy the Eagles, it's the right place to do so. I'll happily take my Bills plus 3.5 from last week, but I think that this is a good spot to potentially buy into what is actually undoubtedly a very good football team. Let's finish up here by talking about the Sunday night game between the Chiefs and the Packers. We're right now at FanDuel Sportsbook. Chiefs are 6-point favorites. Total is 42.5. The spread was 6.5 earlier on this week, now down to 6. Jordan Love has had pretty good efficiency numbers the past couple of weeks, and the overall picture on him is better than I thought it'd be. But Ed, it's the Chiefs now, and they've had a very good defense this year. So can Love do enough here to keep this game close and cover a 6-point spread?
Yeah, I don't think so. My model doesn't think so. It's got Kansas City by 6.3 points on the road. So pretty much right in line with the market. Kansas City's the top ranked team. I do think that's where they should be at this point. The rating is a little bit high, and it has to be to be a 6-point favorite on the road. I did look into some of these Jordan Love games, and he's been really good against the Rams, the Chargers, and Detroit. However, those are not exactly defenses that you want to write home about. Yeah. My adjusted passing success rate, the Rams are 15th, which is actually probably pretty good compared to what a lot of people thought this preseason. The Chargers are 26th, which is just bad. It's just part of the general malaise of thinking. A lot of people I think kind of think the Chargers are going to be good every year, and just hasn't worked out. And then Detroit, a defense that we talked about having, being better, being improved, actually helping the secondary. Well, they're down to 31st in my adjusted passing success rate. That's certainly not good. And they weren't good against Jordan Love in that game. Yet their offense is so good that they probably could have won that game had they just converted some fourth downs, right?
They were down 17-0, and I was checking live money lines. They were still even money. I'm God dang it. I'm trying to live bet this team, but the market is so high on them that I can't. I was so annoyed. And it's good because I would have lost that money, but I was annoyed that I couldn't bet them.
No, but even money is probably the right call.
Yeah, it is.
Played out, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's interesting to think about the Packers. In my newsletter, I had a nugget from Sharp Clark, who is an NFL handicapper, watches every snap, and he thought that he thought there was some value in the Packers against, I think, Pittsburgh. So yeah, I don't know. He sees improvement. So people who kind of watch more of the snaps than I do see some improvement in this Packers offense. Is that really there? We'll see. I'm interested in watching this game. I'm interested in seeing the development of Jordan Love, because it's really hard to play quarterback in the NFL, right? And I think as an analyst, I certainly haven't given up on him as a potential NFL starter, but I'm certainly not I'm not penciling him in as a starter next year either. He's probably in that middle zone. An interesting quarterback to look at and see how it goes.
Yeah. I've had a lot of value on Green Bay recently. I do want to check to see. Yeah, I guess it's the past 4 games I've shown value on them on the money line. They lost to Pittsburgh, so I didn't get that one. But then they beat the Chargers, and then they beat Detroit as well. So this is the 4th consecutive game, and honestly, I'm a bit surprised by that. I don't particularly love Love. I've never really been that high on him. Didn't like him coming out. Didn't have a high opinion even coming into the year. But I guess they've just kind of been okay enough to get by. I think their defense is pretty rough. So like that does make me nervous here because the Chiefs can run it up. Jaden Reed did not practice Wednesday or Thursday. So I took the Packers plus 6.5, and that makes me nervous now with Reed missing practice there. So my model has been high on them recently. I agreed with it enough to take the 6.5. But like, I'm a bit nervous now with Reed being bagged up. I'm assuming Aaron Jones won't play, but like Reed being out would be a downgrade too. So I don't buy into Jordan Love being great. I buy into their offense being efficient enough to get by. I think that's like the most wishy-washy statement that's ever existed. But like, that's just kind of how I feel about them. So it's not like an endorsement of Love that I took the 6.5. It's more so just like, I guess, I trust Matt LaFleur enough. I trust their offensive skill players enough, even without Aaron Jones, to like be okay with it. But the Jaden Reed injury does give me at least some pause with that one. Any other spots? Oh, go ahead, Ed.
Oh, I was just going to say, the Chiefs are like a 6-point road favorite. Even if you're the best team in the NFL, it's a challenge to cover 6 points on the road. I think Green Bay is at least respectable enough that we can give them the benefit of the doubt that maybe they can keep this close and cover it.
That's the hope. But watching the Chiefs those final 3 quarters against the Raiders did make me question this one a little bit, but I think I trust the model here. Any other bets where you see value across week 13, Ed?
Yeah, let's actually talk about the Thursday night game. I actually have an interception lean on this one. Dak Prescott has gone through one heck of a stretch in terms of interceptions. In his last 6 games, he only has 2 picks, but 28 bad balls. Bad balls are either a pick or a situation in which the defender gets a hand on the ball. It's essentially all times that a quarterback puts the ball into a dangerous situation. And Dak Prescott last year threw a ton of picks. And I think that was a surplus of bad balls ended up as picks. The NFL average is about 20%. So when you have 2 out of your last 28 end up as interceptions, that's I don't know exactly what the number is, but it's less than 20%. So you can get Dak over half interception at -115 tonight at Seattle. Oh, hey, look, you guys have a line for it.
I know.
Amazing.
You got me on day of, Ed. You got day of, so you're good. That's why.
I've seen FanDuel take these things down. I don't know. I've tried to check some of these at kickoff and not seen them. Anyway,
and it's the best price. It's -114. So there you go. Got you by a hair.
Excellent. So anyways, I was saying, so Dak's bad ball rate has actually been worse this year than his long-term average. I think we're seeing like the opposite swing of luck. He had really bad luck with picks last year. He's having very good luck with interceptions over the last 6 games. He's starting to chuck the ball deep a lot too. You can kind of see that in the game against the New York Giants. That is something that also lends itself to interceptions. The fact that he is trying to go deep, not like earlier in the season where he wasn't at all. So anyways, my model has about 57% chance he throws a pick here. So I would lean towards Dak to throw a pick.
Well, I think that you should almost bet this out of principle just because of passing volume. Since their bye week, they played 4 games, and They've had, 5 games now, 31 pass attempts, 44, 35, 38, and 32. And you can look at the score and it's like, hey, they're heavy favorites. They may not throw as much, but like they were big favorites in a lot of those games too. And they still threw the ball a ton. Like that Giants game, they were up 40 points basically and still threw 35 times. So like it's the bad balls, but also like it's just raw volume. So probability wise, like it just makes a lot of sense from that perspective. So I think that one makes a ton of sense personally. Like I love Dak. I think he should be higher in the MVP voting than he is right now. But like minus 114 to throw a pick at that volume against a secondary that has good corners. Like I think that's a fantastic one. I love it.
Yeah. And it's been interesting to watch Geno Smith's line go from like plus 160 to throw a pick to minus 160.
Yeah.
So, the chance that he throws a pick doesn't change that much, right? Like, so it's, I actually have Geno at about the same, about 57%. There wasn't any value on no, and I don't really like Geno no, but these markets shift more than they probably should, and that's a good sign that you can get some value in it.
All right. I love it. So Dak to throw a pick minus 114 at FanDuel Sportsbook for the Thursday night game. Ed is also like the Eagles plus 2.5 as they take on the 49ers later on. That is all that we have here for today on covering the spread. But Ed, you mentioned the Ben Brown conversation over on your show, the football analytics show. What else is going on for you this week at the Power Rank?
I'm writing my newsletter. So if you're looking for action this weekend, check out 5 Nugget Saturday. It's my curated list of sports betting tips and analytics. I think this weekend is going to be a really good one. I'm pretty excited about some of the things that I got lined up. So you can check that out at thepowerrank.com.
That is a tease. Ladies and gentlemen, to find that thepowerrank.com and check out the podcast with Ben Brown at the Football Analytics Show. Follow Ed on Twitter at the Power Rank. I am on Twitter at Jim Sonis. You can find me on Threads at Jim.Sonis. And you can follow FanDuel Research at FanDuel Research. We are back once again tomorrow talking some player props with the JJ Zachariason. We'll also have Austin Cass on to talk about the EPL. We got Austin back for this week, talk about some more soccer. Thrilled to have that back on the show as well. We'll talk to you all once again tomorrow. Enjoy Thursday night, and then we'll talk to you again to round out the week on Friday. This has been Covering the Spread right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network.